The volunteers.
Avery and Caden.
The volunteers. They actually, what they're going to do, they're going to put on a little skit for us, and we're going to have to listen out. We'll see if they can speak up a little bit. But when they do this skit, they're going to talk about some things that'll tie in with this whole setup here. And the one thing we're going to talk about that's going to be the biggest thing is during the Civil War, they had this thing called conscription of the draft. And I want to talk about how Judge Pearson dealt with that, because he had to make some very important decisions regarding the draft during the Civil War.
That's my chair, buddy. Get in this one.
This thing is going to
what's
break.
amazing?
He's trying to pull rank on me
It's not
there,
gonna
Chief.
break. You're fine. Just don't tip.
You know what's amazing is almost every time somebody picks out the slouch hat. Now they both have slouch hats on, but they don't like the real fancy hat. They like the regular soldier hat.
If I did that, I would have worn that.
That's right. You got one too, and that's a nice hat, by the way. How much you take for that hat?
$10.
Would you take $10 for it?
$20. No, $20.
I have a feeling you better hang on to that, because that's a nice hat. But anyway, we have two volunteers here, and they're going to portray
Okay.
two fellows that have been
Sorry, give me one.
drafted into the Army. And
We see what it makes
Good?
me do.
all right, so they're going to read from this script, and we have a fellow named, which one of you is Alex? Okay, we have Alex over here, and we have Will over here, and we have Colonel Mallet
This
that's
is
going to
Jeff's
be
birthplace in
part of the
Virginia.
skit as
He's in
well.
Virginia.
So,
Just happened. That's where I first stopped.
Yeah, it's down there rocking.
That's right.
I swear this
What, I missed something?
are you ready to play?
Oh, yeah, I'm
I'm
sorry.
gonna wear that. Do we have to wear this hat?
Yes, yes, you have to wear.
license.
Yes, you have to wear the hat.
Wear the hat. Put your hood over it.
All right, so we're gonna do the skit, and be sure you listen to what they're talking about. I'm gonna ask some questions after they're done. I want to see how much you picked up on that they talked about, because it'll tie in to Judge Pearson making some rulings during the Civil War about this draft thing, and I think what they talk about will give us some good information. I'm good.
Well, I'm Colonel Mallet, and I'm in charge of Camp Holmes here near Raleigh, North Carolina. Lieutenant Chief, clean up your mess there, buddy.
I got it.
You're here today for your enlistment papers. We're going to sign you up, and you're going to get a $50 bounty. Lieutenant Cheek here is going to drill you, and you're going to be assigned to a North Carolina regiment. I'll be back in a few minutes with your enlistment papers.
Alex, what are you doing here? I thought you were working for Mr. Shelley to make shoes for the Army.
Wow, Will, I did not expect to see you either. I guess that I have made enough shoes for now. It looks like I am going into the Army. So you got your script too?
I sure did. A lot of us are in the Army now. It looks like we will have to fight soon.
I am not so sure about that. I want to go home. I am worried that I may never see my family again.
Don't be afraid, Alex. We have been friends for a long time. We can take care of each other. I am sure we will go home when the war is over.
Will, I'm really scared. What if we don't make it through the war alive?
Oh, come on, Alex. You worry too much.
Well, I heard that Judge Pearson is letting conscripts out of the Army. I sent a letter to him. I think I can get out because I'm a shoemaker. I sure hope he hears my case. I sure do want to go back home.
Do you think being a shoemaker is good enough to get out of the Army?
I sure hope so. I think that shoes will always be needed for the Army.
Maybe so, but I plan to stay and fight for my state. I guess you don't intend to take the bounty then.
No, I do not. I I heard that Judge Pearson won't let you out of the, won't let you take, wait. Judge Pearson won't let you out if you take the boundary. I sure hope I hear from him soon.
Well, if you do go home, please tell my folks to pray for me.
We're good. Soldiers, we have your enlistment papers ready. How about a hand for Alex and Will?
And the hammer.
And the hammer. Thor,
Is there hammer,
Thor
Dina?
or something?
Yeah.
So they did a great job, and there was a lot of sort of tough words in there, but y'all did a good job on that. Now, they've both been conscripted into the Army, and they're both sitting here in the conscription camp deciding what to do. So what did you hear Will say he was going to do? You remember what he said?
Stay in the Army.
He's going to stay in the Army. He's going to fight. What did Alex say?
That he's gonna try and get out by being a shoemaker.
That's right. So he was sort of talking about something that would allow him to get out of the Army. So let's talk about these one thing at a time. Conscription. What was conscription? It was basically the draft, right? And it was a law that was implemented in 1862 during the war. See, at the beginning of the war, they had a lot of volunteers, but after about a year of fighting, they ran out of volunteers. They needed more soldiers. And since they couldn't get people to volunteer, they actually had to go out and force people into the Army, which was conscription. They picked on ages 18 to 35. If you were somewhere between 18 and 35, you were conscripted into the Army. And when they conscripted you, you would receive a notice, and you would have to report to a camp like Camp Holmes, where we are today. That would have been in Raleigh, North Carolina, back in 1862. So if you failed to report, they would send officers out to get you and bring you into camp. They would sort of arrest you and bring you in. Now, there were certain things that they could use to get out of the Army. I want to talk about that too. There was a clause in the conscription law that said you could be exempted out of the Army if you had a certain type of job. So what job did we hear a while ago that he was thinking about? Shoemaker. So why do you think a shoemaker would be an important job? Yeah.
So the people that are listed in the Army don't hurt their feet.
That's right. That's right. Because
Or
you know,
step on
like the
something.
shoes we have on, that's the very type of shoe that they had. Those shoes maybe lasted a year at most, and then they would wear out, or they would have holes in them. You ever walked across a gravel road without your shoes on?
Yeah,
Yeah, it hurts.
Yeah. Could you imagine doing that for 20 miles a day for a whole year with your shoes off?
Yeah, I would probably just kill myself.
It'd be hard. It'd be hard. So, you know, your feet would be all bloodied up and cut up. So shoes were very important, and so you had to have somebody to make the shoes, and it took a lot of people to do that. So Alex being a shoemaker was a pretty important thing. Now, sometimes, let's talk about some other jobs. What do you think would be another job that would allow you to be exempt from the Army? Yeah.
I think another job would actually just be a builder, because you can't build. People might need houses, and you might need to go there to build stuff instead of going to the Army.
Some types of jobs like that were exempt. That's right. Yeah.
Farmer.
You know what? I got some bad news for the farmer. The farmers
plantations.
ended up having to go in and fight. You know what? You know what happened when a farmer went off to fight in the war? Who took care of the farm?
A slave for slaves.
They didn't have slaves a lot of time.
Nobody.
The wife. The wife and the kids. If you were at home and you were one of the kids, guess what? Y'all would have to be out there working pretty hard in the field. Taking care of cows, getting up early in the morning, feed the pigs. You might even have to help slaughter the pigs for food.
I know.
So yeah,
Lieutenant
farmers.
Chief Alex has a comment here.
Yeah.
Also, clothes makers.
Sometimes the clothes makers. There were people that were making uniforms for the soldiers. That's right. Yeah.
You could use paramedics for
Doctors, surgeons. Now, guess what? Guess what the Army needed when they were going into battle?
medics.
They needed medics, they needed doctors and surgeons. So a lot of times they were embedded in the units. They didn't really fight, but they were there with them. And so they had to use a lot of those folks too. But some of them were exempt, but a lot of them went along with the Army. Yeah, somebody else raised their hand while ago. But anyway, let me read you a little bit more on who, let's see, we had teachers. Teachers were exempt, school teachers. Imagine that. How about preachers? Preachers were exempt. Railroad workers, people that worked on the railroads, ran the trains, people that ran the boats on the rivers, people that built boats on the rivers. See if I'm leaving it. Telegraph operators. Anybody know what a telegraph is? Morse code?
Yeah.
You know where they tap it, and that's what they had. That was the latest technology in 1860. They didn't have cell phones. They didn't have phones. They didn't have walkie-talkies. You know, so the telegraph was the way to send stuff, unless you just got on your horse and rode to somebody's house to deliver a message. Sometimes the mail would run. You know, yeah.
Two things. One, like a comment, and the second one is a question. Can we go in there?
Not yet. Not yet. When we get
Okay,
done.
my question is, my papa was in the Army,
Uh-huh.
but he didn't work. He watched the post.
Okay. Yeah. And that was an important thing too. Yeah.
What is it?
My head.
Well, that would probably be correct. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Put
Yeah.
it back up.
My dad was in the Army too, and he's
Can't take that
kind of
hammer
still
with
in it, but he's like flying planes. And,
Okay. Is he in the Air Force?
yeah, he's in the Air Force, and like a while ago, he was in the Army.
Okay. So some of you have some people in your family that have military experience. During this period of time, though, it was pretty much you were either in the infantry, or you were in the cavalry, or you were in the artillery, and that was it. And a lot of them.
Cavalry's
Oh,
horseback.
okay. They're taking it off. Yeah. These things get a little itchy sometimes.
Cavalry's like horseback.
Yeah, they would ride horses. Let me think. One other job. Druggists, the people that made the medicines for sickness, they were exempt as well. So you sort of see there's a lot of different jobs. Now, the military authorities sometimes would not honor the exemption. They needed soldiers so badly that sometimes they would take them and keep them, even though they knew that they were exempt from service. So in Alex's case, he was actually exempt, but they still made him go into the Army. So what he decided to do was write to Judge Pearson here at Richmond Hill, and he asked Judge Pearson to exempt him because he was a shoemaker. So this letter that you see in the very front of your package, that was the letter that was sent on behalf of Alex. And then on the back side of that page, you'll see where Pearson responded. Pearson wrote that back from here, telling him that he was exempt. Now, he had to use a certain particular process to get Alex out of the Army. And it was a proclamation that Judge Pearson issued. He issued a writ of habeas corpus. Now, habeas corpus is a Latin term, but it means to have the body. So you have habeas to have, corpus the body. And what Pearson was doing, he would say, you have to bring Alex before me and I will determine his case. And in that case, he determined that he really was exempt because of his job. And he let him out. And he had to go back to his job, of course. Now, the question was, what would happen if he quit his job? What would happen if Alex were to quit his job as a shoemaker? What would happen?
They'd probably just take him back.
They did. They would have. But Alex stayed in his job for the remainder of the war. So, now, we sort of know that Alex did not go off to the war, but Will was talking about going off to the war. What do you think happened to Will?
He died. He probably died. He got shot by a cannonball.
Everybody assumes that Will died, but he actually survived.
Wow, he
He
survived.
did. Now, he had a rough time of it, though. He went into battle up in Virginia. He was with the 31st North Carolina Regiment. They went up into a fight there in Northern Virginia in 1864. He was captured during the battle. and he was put in a prisoner of war camp. Now that was a pretty rough place to live, but he was there almost 2 years, and then in June of 1865, they let him out because the war was over, and he came back to Davidson County where he lived. Now, both Will and Alex were from Davidson County. Alex is probably already at home. Will comes home after the war, and I'm going to guess that because they were friends before the war, that they may have gotten back together as friends after the war as well. So, yeah.
My pops was in World War I and maybe in the Soviet Union.
Okay.
Wow.
I know, I've heard of that happening where they were in both wars, yeah. Yeah, you got a question too.
Where's the real paper of this?
It's in the North Carolina archives down in Raleigh. And I actually went down there and saw the piece of paper that you're looking at. So they allowed me to take pictures of it, and then I printed off the picture I took of it. So those are actually images of the real letter. And you can see where I actually typed it up so you could read it on the second page.
You can read that.
A little bit, yeah. Now it's tough. How many of y'all write cursive?
I
Does
can
anybody
write
write
my
cursive?
name.
write my name. That's all I can do.
They don't really teach that like they used to, do they?
I know how to write my name in cursive besides the S and the P. That's it. Not my
I know how to write my
Those
middle
are
name in
interesting
cursive.
letters
if
to
that
write in
makes sense.
cursive too.
I can write.
So,
I can write.
the letters that you see here is an example. During the war, hundreds and hundreds of letters were written to Pearson here at Richmond Hill. And he responded to quite a few of them. And we found over 80 of them from Davidson County. That's where these guys were from. So we know that there's a bunch of exemption requests out there. And during the war, Pearson was very active in responding to these folks. He was very big on the law, and he made sure that the law was followed as a judge. Being the Supreme Court justice, it was very important. He made a lot of key decisions during the war. Now, after the war, Pearson said that he thinks he taught over 1,000 people the law. Over here in these woods, right here in this little cleared area, there was a little log cabin there where he actually taught out of. And he would have 20 or 25 students at a time in the fall and in the spring, and he would teach them the law. They would have to study their books, and he would take them and walk them around the property around here. You can see there's some trails around here, and he would walk through the woods with them and ask them a lot of questions. He would get them to not just regurgitate what was in the book. No, I don't want to hear what's in the book. I want to know what you're going to do about this case. What if this case came up? What would you do in the court with this? What would you do with this case? So he was very interactive with his students. And a lot of the students, after they graduated from his school, they were very fond of him as a teacher. They liked him a lot. And so when he died in 1878, they actually got together and raised a bunch of money. Some of his students did. And they built this huge monument to him over his grave down in Raleigh. So he's buried in Raleigh. I don't know how tall it is.
It says 18 foot.
Oh, is it 18? Okay, that's right.
I
So
can show you right
you found that in the book?
Where?
I think there is a page somewhere in there. Oh, I know what, you saw it in the other little handout that they have.
Yeah.
So anyway, y'all are gonna leave these with me today, but you'll have a handout that will actually show you what he just said. It talks about his marker there in
Yeah, we
Oakwood Cemetery.
got that picture.
Yeah, okay, good. I'm glad y'all got that. So, Pearson was sort of a big person here in North Carolina, but he lived in Yadkin County. He was the Chief Justice of North Carolina, the highest judicial official in the state. And he served in that capacity from 1848 to 1878, 30 years. 30 years. So he was a very important person. And a lot of people that went on to become important people studied under him. Some of them became judges, some of them became lawyers, some of them even became Chief Justice of North Carolina, and then others actually became governor of North Carolina. And some of them even Civil War generals. So